social responsibility, I think, is something that needs to be naturally connected to what your core business is. And we recently not completed, but we recently had the first harvest off of our lime farm in Hoedspruit, the Moletele Community Trust. About five years ago, we realized we don't have enough limes to serve our Corona beer, and we partnered with the Kumati and the Moletele Trust. We invested 19 million rand into setting up a farm, and we are now the largest lime producer in the country. And that is, to me, is a beautiful example. We've just harvested 1 million limes. It supports 1,600 families in the Moletele Trust, and that is, for me, is social responsibility. It's doing something that benefits our organization, but benefits the communities in which we operate.
702.
The upside of failure.
Sometimes failure is the foundation of greatest success stories.
It is 7 minutes past 2 o'clock. I am Jane Dutton. We're going to be talking about the upside of failure. It's such an important hour, isn't it? I mean, I think every one of us has done something that we think, oh no, what a disaster. And I should imagine that many times out of that disaster comes something quite extraordinary that pushed you into a different part of your brain, a different part of your skill set that you never thought you had. That's my own personal experience, and I suspect my guest, Vaughan Croeser, has something similar. Vaughan, a very good afternoon to you. Vice President of Marketing for South African Breweries, a novice trumpeter who's blazed into the marketing scene and put South Africa onto the international stage.
Good afternoon. It's great to be here.
Did you write that? This is me.
No, this was written by the very competent team at M Sports, so Kia and her team. So,
do you find it easy or hard? I mean, I can't write my own CV. I can't write those letters going, I am marvelous, fantastic, clever, brilliant. Can you do that?
I recently had to do a short bio for something I was involved in, and I didn't have one, and it took me hours to write this thing because it's so
hard,
uncomfortable.
Isn't it? Yes, because you want to tell everyone what you can do, but then you're also a little embarrassed.
Yeah.
All right, tell us about your journey. I mean, how did you go from being a trumpet player, clearly not too good a one, otherwise you'd probably be standing on a stage somewhere, to where you are today?
No, music was a foundational thing in my life. It's something my mother nurtured in me, so I was trained in music, and piano and trumpet were my primary instruments. And after finishing my marketing honors degree, there was this 4 months of trying to find work and sending my CV and not getting any responses. And I got quite anxious, and I want to start working. I want to start doing something. And a friend got me an audition at the Barnyard Theatre, and I ended up spending a year playing the trumpet in the Barnyard, which was a lot of fun. It was a very exciting time. Yeah.
I can imagine. Yeah. But it's also good weighing up what you know. I mean, my mum is an actress, and I thought that maybe I'd be pretty good at that. And then I thought, well, you're either really good at that or I would just keep waitressing tables, right? So there's a time in your life where you go, okay, I've got to make a dramatic change.
Yeah, there was always, I always wanted to work in marketing. It is something I really enjoyed studying. So when the opportunity finally came to join SAB, it wasn't through marketing. It was through the sales side of the organization. But I literally went from
being an enthusiastic consumer.
From the Barnyard Theatre straight into the sales side of the organization. So it was a good moment.
Okay, I was going to go into your pedigree, but seeing as you and I both suffer from the same thing, how about you tell us what you've done, what you've achieved? We can work on those. Come on.
No, I think it's been a wonderful journey at SAB. In fact, it's my 20 years anniversary at the organization.
Congratulations.
Which was really special. For me, the biggest joy is, I think the biggest accomplishment has been seeing how healthy our brand portfolio is and how well the company is performing, but also the quality of our marketing team. You know, the people I work with every day, I work with an exceptional team of people who are very talented, very driven, and so passionate. I spoke of my tenure. My team, my direct reports, and all of them are above 10, 15 years in the organization. So that level of commitment and passion, I think, is really special. Yeah.
All right. So this hour is all about failure and how important it is to growing. So as a child, I mean, is there a failure that jumps out for you? Something that happened when you were growing up that might have changed your journey?
Look, I think my childhood was really special. I mean, I grew up with in a house with four very strong women. My mother and three sisters, and I think they put me in my place. So I think some lessons in humility were learned early on. But I think the first big lesson, I think, came at university. At the time, I was a representative on the student council for men's residences. I had responsibilities on the house committee of the res where I was staying. And in my final year, we had a very important assignment as part of our final mark. And it was group work. We were 6 or 7 in a team. And I was responsible for the final chapter of this document. And I never submitted it.
Why?
The marks came out, and one of the team members called me and said, I see we got 0 for the assignment, which means that we're under pressure. We might not pass that specific module of the course. And it dawned on me that I'd never submitted this. And it felt like the world was kind of imploding around me. I remember calling my father saying, Dad, I've made a huge mistake. I think there's going to be consequences. And thankfully, I went to the head of the department, whom I had a great relationship with, and I had a good reputation in the department. They were obviously furious at this, and I explained to them that, look, now the whole team is suffering because of this thing that I did. Here is the work. If there's anything you can do, is give me the 0, but at least let the team be assessed based on the quality of this collective work. They made me appear in front of a panel, and it was discussed at length. And very gratefully, they did review the work, and the team got the marks which they deserved. But it was a very expensive mistake, and for me, a real lesson at that young time in my life in responsibility and accountability. And even I think I'm a little bit of a lost corp. And that really taught me how to manage and juggle multiple things. I live in my diary. I never miss a deadline. I love to be well prepared for things. I still have nightmares of that day. It had such a profound impact.
And did you question why you didn't submit it? I mean, did you get down to the bottom of it within yourself?
It was a time when I had just a lot of the responsibilities and different things happening at the student council, and a lot of socializing, a lot of music happening as well at that time. So it was just a very poor mistake. Yeah.
But I was listening to you talking there, obviously, and I was just thinking how important it is confronting that mistake or any mistake, right? And you would have grown by, and I think it's the same in a relationship. It's the apprehension and the build-up that's the worst bit. But often when you go to that person or whoever it is, figure of authority, and say, listen, I'm sorry, this is what happened. It's a lot easier than you imagined.
Yeah, and that's true. And I think again, kudos to the leadership of that department. Many of whom I still have contact with, and that they could see the bigger picture and allowed us to, gave us a get out of jail free card that day. But, yeah.
And did your team forgive you, but remove that sort of important role from you going forward?
Yeah, no, I was just very happy that they didn't have to suffer because of that mistake. Yeah.
But another important lesson coming from that is the importance of deadlines.
Yeah, and I mean now a lot of my work has to do with very large and significant scale projects that are all running concurrently and are at different moments of their development. And I've, over the years, and I think with that lesson in mind, I've become quite obsessed with time. So I don't like being late for a meeting. I like if I need to be somewhere, I try and be like an hour early. And it's become like I think a part of my character now. And it wasn't like that. I don't think I was ever that concerned with deadlines and times and thankfully I was able to learn that over the years, and today it really helps me a lot. Yeah.
I mean, deadlines are beautiful things. I couldn't exist without one. I work, as somebody said, my life is a beautiful mess. But when you have that deadline, everything seems to come together, doesn't it? And if you don't have a deadline, then it's just this sort of amorphous kind of blob banging around.
Absolutely.
Fast forward to last year, to this year, and you've been voted by your peers, named the top 3 most admired marketing professionals in South Africa in the Agency Scope 2023-24 awards. And I mean, you haven't been in this role for that long. How does that make you feel, that sort of accolade? How important is that to success?
Look, for me, if in terms of the importance of that, is I hope that it makes young graduates aspire to come to the South African breweries. That for me is the primary joy that I get out of it. That there's a place there that is incredible. And but I think you talk about the short time period. I'm very blessed in that I work with all the best agencies in the country, and we have some incredible creative agencies in South Africa. And because I have such a wide portfolio of different brands, each of them work with a different agency, which means I get this amazing exposure to all this creative talent, and I guess that's also helped profile me in a way that I get to build relationships with the top creative people in the country.
That must be fantastic, right? Brainstorming with creative minds.
It is the best thing. A lot of my work is resource allocation and budgets and the not so exciting things. But when I get to be in a boardroom with South Africa's most creative minds, that's when I'm really in my happy place. Yeah.
And other failures that come to mind, I mean, even small ones, I mean, how's that shaped your resilience, your determination to pursue goals?
On this topic of with the agencies and the creative work, in 2018 we had to prepare a campaign for the FIFA World Cup happening in Russia. Unfortunately, Bafana had not qualified, but we still had rights to this tournament, and we felt we had to leverage these rights. And I was working on the Castle Lager brand at the time, and I produced an advert which we never flighted because it was completely off of the brand positioning. Castle Lager is positioned. We use these archetypes, and it's an every person brand. It is about belonging, and we created a piece of film which was more like a jester. It was really trying to be funny and do something. It actually featured a whole range of very prominent sports stars who in the set was like a Pleasantville musical with pastel colors. And they're singing to the tune of "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," how they're finishing their chores with a smile on their face, so that they can watch the football that evening. So they're mowing the lawn and scrubbing dishes and cleaning the bathrooms, and all in anticipation of not having to miss the football. And it was a beautiful production. I mean, we worked with Chloe Coetzee, who's an incredible director. It was a beautiful project.
Chloe with all the hair.
Yes, Chloe. Yes.
She's a hoot.
So Chloe and I have had lots of fun in many adverts together. In fact, we're working with the Darling team right now on something. But I remember when I showed it to my boss, and she was a profound leader. She had a profound impact on my career. And I felt so bad because she said, Vaughan, we'll never flight this. This is so far off the tone of the brand. And we'd spent all that money, done all that work, and we
I mean, that sort of thing's in the millions, right?
Yes, they can be. They can be. And that was a very big moment. And I felt terrible. I felt bad for disappointing her, but also for getting it so wrong.
And why do you think you got it so wrong? I mean, what?
Well, I think the biggest lesson there, and it's something I do to this day, is we progressed quite far into this project without sharing it with enough people. It was almost like going solo kind of thing. We were in the team, the small team that was working with me on that at the time. We kind of had this vision of what it was going to look like, and we went in that direction, and it was completely the wrong direction. I actually watched it this morning. It's locked in a vault. We retrieved it from the vault, and I watched it.
Doesn't implode after you've looked at it.
And it's a piece of art. I mean, Chloe, it is really a work of art. And seeing these sports celebrities doing, it's a full-on musical, basically, is a beautiful thing.
I'd like to see it.
I'll show it to you. I can't send it to you, but I'll show it to you. And I had to have the right input and the right people looking at it. And to this day, when I'm doing big projects or difficult projects, things that carry a lot of risk for the brands or for the company reputation, we share the load. I make sure that I have the right advisors, that I'm speaking to very experienced people to guide me.
And did you learn that off the back of that project, that it was too small, too few of you making those sort of important decisions?
Absolutely. And now I feel confident in these sometimes very significant projects that we run, because I know I have the right advisors who help me and who guide me. And because I think we were just kind of going solo was not a good idea. I think another lesson here is also the way that my boss managed that situation, and in that while there were consequences, I was still given another chance, and I was like, it was get back on your feet and let's go. Because
what was her initial reaction?
No, the first time when we showed her the work, I think she just said, this is not going to fly. We're not going to show this ever. And we would.
But she must have been quite shocked, calculating very quickly how much it cost.
Yeah.
And that it was totally off point.
Yeah, it was very, very tough for me, and also for me to disappoint her in that way. It was a very tough time. But I really felt supported, and I think she understood that. At the time we had also set ourselves a goal as an organization to become more creatively capable. We were not performing well creatively at the time. We wanted to lift the bar on our creative output. And I think she appreciated the fact that we were pushing boundaries. And when you are doing work like that, and work that we continue to do in this fashion, I think it's important to make people feel safe. And to have relationships where there's deep trust and candor and honesty, that you can raise problems as they arise and discuss them.
You touched on a project that you'd submitted some time back. It was an absolute failure. You totally missed the mark, hadn't read the room well, and you'd learnt about what your boss had taught you. Where did that position you when it came from a creative point of view? I mean, how important is it to explore, even though it might not be in the right direction?
Yeah, I think I've learned a lot since those days, and I've certainly improved the way that I assess creative work to ensure the way, how well it aligns with what that brand is about, and that has been I think a big advancement since that very tough moment.
So you are now the Vice President of Marketing of the South African Breweries. How important is a title like that, like Vice President? I mean, does that add to your perception of yourself within the work environment?
I don't really mind, the title. In fact, I find it quite a daunting title. I sometimes say, like, I look after the brands. If someone asks me, what do? I don't know. I'm the VP of marketing.
Yes.
I like
it's rather pretentious, doesn't it?
I like to say, no, I look after the brands, because these brands, you nurture them, you look after, and you pass them on. These brands are 130 years old. It's a responsibility, one that I take very seriously. The title means absolutely nothing. It's the caretaker of the portfolio.
You were talking a little earlier on about how you would love it if people came and joined you because it's a great company to work at. How important is it to love the company you work in? And I mean, this is obviously a self-explaining question, rhetorical question, I think.
Well,
I mean, it's probably everything, right?
But I don't know if everyone has that experience.
No.
I think having a work life that is fulfilling and that you love and that you find purpose in, I don't know if it's always the rule and whether it's an exception, because I hear different stories and I speak to people and it's something I preach at, and I say preach deliberately at my with my marketing team, is if you don't come to work every day pinching yourself, thinking, is this what I'm doing?
What
SAB,
fun.
making ads about beer, then maybe this is not the place for you. And we have honest conversations with our team. Say, look, if you're not loving this, then it might not be for you. And because I'm now, I guess, halfway through a career, and I look back over the last 20 years, and of course there are tough days and there are tough moments. We discuss some of them, but wow, what a life! Okay, and I wish that for the people in my team. I wish that for the agencies that I work with. And loving the work, I think, is a huge privilege, and it's something I consciously do.
I mean, I can't imagine not enjoying your job. I love presenting as well. I mean, it's just such a rush. I can't imagine, because it consumes so much time of your life, right?
Yes.
And that obviously impacts on every other part of your life. Yeah. Like your job impacts, I should imagine, on a lot of people who drink. What is your message to people out there? Because you've got a responsibility, especially in a country like ours.
Yes, absolutely. And it's a fundamental part of my role, is ensuring that we communicate in a responsible way. And I sit on the board of a public benefit organization called SAB Sharp, which we created 2 years ago. And that is our sole purpose of that organization. And we invest in a few pillars. The first one being our responsible trader program, where we audit all of our licensed establishments. So we've done 30,000 audits since 2021, and we have now managed to get them up to 78% compliance. These are things like not serving alcohol to underage people, making sure your license is visible, separate demarcated bathrooms. There's minimum requirements that we set for responsible trading. I talk about the responsible communications, which is another leg of that work. And then also we have a project with alcohol evidence centers. So we work with the Metro Police. We have these mobile alcohol evidence centers, and we've really been investing in these assets. They basically enable. They help the process of getting a conviction in a drunk driving case. We've made 10,000 arrests this year through the AEC that we've invested in.
This year?
This year we've made 10,000 arrests. So it's something we're extremely serious about, and because we can also only operate in a thriving, healthy society. Our product is a product of moderation. Beer is a lower alcohol product. It's a moderate, product of moderation, and we can only survive if we operate in a healthy society.
So what would your message be to your children, for example? Is it a similar message to that? What would you say?
My children are still very young. My daughter is 10, my son is 5.
Yeah, but they learn very quickly. They watch what you're doing.
Exactly. So I was going to say, it's not so much what I say, but what I do. I think that will impact them in the long run. But I think that, the way they see me interact with beer, and the way they see me, live a life which is very much, invested in this, in the beer industry. I want to set a good example for them. I want them to be proud of what we do and my work.
We've got a message from Dr. Philemon Mahuma, who says, "Upside of failure, keep going. Absolutely profound interview. I'm learning to appreciate the vast diversity and enormity, which is the world of work." Thank you for that message. Lovely message. It's lovely sharing, isn't it? Something that you do. I mean, you realize most of us do our own job, and that's all we know. And then when you get introduced to somebody else's world, it's absolutely fascinating, isn't it?
Yes.
Especially when they love it. One of the things that you do love is Christine and the Queens, Tilted. Why?
Yeah, this always reminds me of the era when my wife and I started our little family. This song was just, it's always seemed to find its way on our playlist. We love this song, and it's interesting. I have a video of my daughter and I where we are dancing to this song, and she's like, I think she's like 18 months old at the time, and she's doing these beautiful moves to the song. It's a really beautiful tune, and we're dancing together, and she's mimicking my actions, and we're basically doing like ballet. I'm doing jetés, and she's mimicking me, and it's ironic. I was searching for this video this morning, because I wanted to talk about that memory, and I looked at the date on the video, and it's today's date.
Oh, wow.
It was this day like 8 years ago.
Synchronicity
It
there.
was so,
Lovely.
It was so,
Wow.
yeah, it was such a
Meant to
beautiful
be.
coincidence. So I'm going to enjoy this song now.
I'm talking to Vaughan Croeser, Vice President of Marketing for South African Breweries. We've discussed certain setbacks. What have you learned going forward from the mistakes that you've made and the way your boss at that stage and one of your lecturers handled it? How do you deal with people in your team who make a mistake?
Yes, absolutely. I mentioned earlier that the kind of work that we're doing is often really pushing boundaries. And we recently did a project where we used spent grain to make bread with, and big impact on the whole supply chain and trying to figure these things out. But then in the process, we often come to many obstacles, many risks. We have, in the social media era, you have immediate feedback on things, from consumers or people in the industry. And I think on a very practical note, we have a group called The Collective. It is a group that we have set up at our office. We convene every 2 weeks, and we review the work with the brand teams before anything gets out there. It's made up of a body of experts across the industry: legal, corporate affairs, marketing, social media experts, and they, I think, empower us to take risks, to look at work and say, okay, these are the risks with this piece of work. These are the things you might not have seen while you were developing.
There's a difference between a risk to making a complete botch up in your team, right? So, I mean, how do you tackle that? Do you shout at them? Do you say, come on, I like what you tried? But
based on my experience, that the things that are the mistakes, the things that go wrong, are the things that you learn the most from. And those are the things that shape you and give you, make you into a much more formidable and rounded professional. And I think my team, well, I hope they feel that way, but that they have my support, and that I back their decisions, and that we're in it together, really. I mean, we're in it together.
We've got little time, but I know you want to speak about Jeremy Loops and what it means in your life, and when it comes to failure and success, and all of those emotions.
Yeah, this last song, we have an annual convention at SAB. It's a beautiful thing. We all get together and we share, the year's work, and our whole sales organization is there. And over the last few years, I've used the platform to sing and perform, and because I have this platform, and I love to keep that musical aspect of my life going. And this year I thought I don't want to just do the same old thing, and I managed to convince my team, 40 of us actually, to sing as a choir. And so over the last 5 weeks, there's been a very intense rehearsing with our choir leader, Pieter Besaidnout. And the team actually performed on Wednesday evening this week in the Sun City Super Bowl for 1,000 colleagues.
Wow.
And this is the song they sang. It's a beautiful song by Jeremy Loops. We sang 3 songs, but this was the opener.
Okay.
And it was just a very special moment. It was one of those, wow, you get the team you deserve, and I'm very proud of my team.
If you ever need a shoulder to cry, you can put all of your troubles or worries upon me. Gotta keep your head up, gotta be strong.
Lovely song, Better Together. I mean, good message there. 2 things I want to know from you before we finish. How important social responsibility comes into any sort of business, and how you work failure into that. How are you going to take any failures that you've made going forward in your message?
Social responsibility, I think, is something that needs to be naturally connected to what your core business is. And we recently not completed, but we recently had the first harvest off of our lime farm in Hoedspruit, the Molotele Community Trust. About five years ago, we realized we don't have enough limes to serve our Corona beer. And we partnered with the Kumati and the Molotele Trust. We invested 19 million rand into setting up a farm, and we are now the largest lime producer in the country. And that is, to me, is a beautiful example. We've just harvested 1 million limes. It supports 1,600 families in the Molotele Trust, and that is, for me, is social responsibility. It's doing something that benefits our organization, but benefits the communities in which we operate.
And we've all got to go that route. We've run out of time. Vaughan Croeser, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you very much for having me.
702.
The upside of failure.
Sometimes failure is the foundation of greatest success stories.